What if every single mile you drive from this point forward becomes a billable expense charged directly to your account? Not a flat annual road tax, not a fuel levy baked invisibly into the pump price, an itemized per-mile charge calculated by a tracking device installed in your vehicle and reported to a government system in real time. The moment that idea sounds like conspiracy thinking, consider this. The policy frameworks for exactly this kind of system are already in active development and pilot testing across the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia right now. The name changes depending on who is proposing it: vehicle miles traveled tax, road user charge, pay per mile scheme. But the fundamental concept is the same everywhere it appears. Government agencies are working out how to charge you for every single mile you drive, and if current timelines hold, 2026 is the year several of these systems stop being proposals and start becoming real. To understand why this is happening, you have to start with a fiscal problem that governments across the developed world have been watching build for years. The traditional model of road infrastructure funding has relied heavily on fuel tax revenue. Every time a driver fills their tank, a significant portion of the price at the pump flows to the government to fund road maintenance, infrastructure investment, and transportation management. It has been a relatively reliable and surprisingly invisible revenue mechanism for decades. But electric vehicle adoption is growing at a pace that is beginning to create a meaningful and expanding hole in that revenue stream. An EV driver pays no fuel tax whatsoever. Zero. They drive on the same roads, they contribute to the same surface wear, they benefit from the same infrastructure investment, but the funding model that maintains that infrastructure does not capture any contribution from them at all. And as EVs become a larger share of the total vehicle fleet, the gap between the road use that is happening and the tax revenue that is being collected to pay for it grows wider every single year. In the United States alone, the Federal Highway Trust Fund, which is the primary federal mechanism for road and transit funding, has been projecting structural deficits as the vehicle fleet electrifies. State transportation departments are watching their fuel tax revenue projections flatten in states with high EV adoption rates, like California, Washington, and Colorado, even while vehicle miles traveled on state roads continues to grow. Oregon has been running an active voluntary road usage charge program called Origo since 2015. Utah, Hawaii, and California have all conducted formal pilot programs, testing per-mile tracking and billing systems with real participants on real roads. The Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, passed in 2021, included explicit allocated funding for a national motor vehicle per-mile user fee pilot program, which is not the language of an administration that thinks mileage taxation is a distant hypothetical. It is the language of an administration that is working out the implementation details. The United Kingdom has been running parallel discussions. Multiple independent government-commissioned transport reviews have recommended transitioning away from fuel duty toward a usage-based charging model as the vehicle fleet decarbonizes. Fuel duty currently raises approximately £28 billion annually for the UK Treasury, making it one of the most significant single revenue sources in the national budget. As combustion vehicle registrations decline in line with legislated sales phase-out timelines, that revenue will decline with them unless a replacement mechanism is found. Senior Treasury and Department for Transport officials have acknowledged the structural problem publicly. The political difficulty of implementing per-mile charging has so far kept the UK at the research and consultation stage, but the fiscal pressure is building year by year. Now here's where it gets genuinely concerning for everyone who drives. The technology required to make a per-mile tax system actually function requires tracking how far you drive. And in the more sophisticated versions that governments are increasingly interested in, exactly where you drive, when you drive, and on what type of road. The simplest implementation uses an odometer-based reporting mechanism. You report your mileage periodically through an online portal or a third-party account, pay the calculated charge, and that is the end of the data interaction. Several state pilot programs in the United States have used this approach, and it is relatively privacy neutral. But the more capable implementations that allow for dynamic pricing based on road classification, congestion level, time of day, urban versus location, and emission zone status require GPS tracking of vehicle movements in something that approximates real time. Oregon's Origo program and California's Road Charge pilot both tested GPS-enabled tracking devices alongside simpler alternatives. Participants in those programs reported that the GPS-capable devices tracked not only mileage, but route information, travel timing, and movement patterns. That information, even if it currently sits within relatively constrained privacy frameworks specific to those pilot programs, represents a surveillance infrastructure of a kind that has never existed for ordinary everyday driving. A government agency with a real-time GPS record of where every vehicle in a jurisdiction travels every day holds a dataset with applications that extend well beyond billing for road use. Insurance companies, law enforcement, urban planning departments, commercial data analytics firms, there's significant institutional interest in that kind of movement data from multiple directions, in the legal frameworks governing access to it, secondary use of it, and long-term retention of it are still in very early stages of development. The impact of per-mile taxation on different categories of drivers is deeply unequal in ways that policy advocates rarely discuss transparently. Urban residents living near public transportation networks have genuine alternatives to private vehicle use. If per-mile charges increase the cost of driving, they can absorb some of that cost by reducing discretionary vehicle trips and substituting public transit. But rural drivers, outer suburban commuters, and working tradespeople frequently do not have those alternatives. A farm worker driving 35 miles each way to reach the nearest supply town is making a necessary trip, not a discretionary one. A plumber or electrician who needs their van on the road every working day is not making a lifestyle choice that per-mile pricing can reasonably address. For these drivers, a per-mile charge that looks modest on a unit basis compounds into a significant additional annual cost with no practical way to reduce it. UK researchers at the University of California, examining detailed modeling of the state's road charge pilot, found that uniformly applied per-mile taxes would fall disproportionately on lower-income, rural, and outer suburban households who drive longer distances and have fewer mobility alternatives. Meanwhile, it would provide relative benefit to higher-income urban households who drive less and have better access to transit. That is a structurally regressive outcome, wearing the clothing of modern infrastructure finance reform. The people least able to absorb additional transportation costs pay the most. The people with the most mobility flexibility pay the least. And that outcome is built directly into the geometric logic of a flat per-mile charge applied equally regardless of transportation context. There is also a practical enforcement challenge that gets glossed over in most policy consultation documents. A per-mile charging system requires either a trusted odometer reporting mechanism with meaningful audit capability or a government-mandated GPS device in every vehicle on the road that cannot be feasibly bypassed. The first approach requires verification infrastructure that does not currently exist at national scale in most jurisdictions. The second approach raises serious questions about mandated government tracking hardware installed in privately owned property, and the legal and constitutional landscape around that is contested and unresolved in most markets. Fleet operators, rideshare companies, commercial haulage operators, and small business owners who put high mileage on their vehicles as a core part of their business model are watching these developments with particular attention. For businesses where vehicle operating cost is a direct input into pricing and margin calculations, the addition of a per-mile tax at a level that meaningfully replaces lost fuel duty revenue could represent a material increase in operating cost. Those costs get passed forward into prices for services and goods. The consumer pays again at that end, having already contributed at the per-mile level. There is no clean or easy resolution to the fiscal problem that is driving this policy direction. Road infrastructure genuinely needs to be funded from somewhere. The funding model built on fuel taxation genuinely does not scale to a fully electrified vehicle fleet. Per-mile charging, in some form, is likely to be part of the answer in most major markets over the next decade, whether drivers want it or not. But the specific form that it takes, what data it collects, who has access to that data, how it handles the privacy rights of drivers, and how it distributes the cost burden across different categories of drivers, those design choices are being made right now in policy working groups that most drivers have no visibility into and are not engaging with. The window for meaningful public input into how these systems are designed and constrained is shorter than most people realize, because once the infrastructure is built, the billing is running, and the political and commercial interests around the existing system are established, making structural changes becomes extremely difficult. You get to pay attention to what gets proposed in your state or country in the next 12 to 24 months, read the consultation documents when they appear, respond to the public submissions processes, because the version of this system that gets locked in now will be with you for. And if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more videos like this every week.